Noah Carter pressed his back against the cold concrete wall, his breath shallow as he listened to the footsteps echoing through the abandoned high-rise. He had counted 3 men, all armed, all dangerous. Worse than the dead outside. The past 6 months had taught him one thing: other survivors couldn't be trusted. Noah clutched his crowbar, the metal slick with sweat. His heart hammered against his ribs. He had only wanted a quick supply run, some canned food, a bottle of water, maybe painkillers if he was lucky. But he had stumbled into someone else's hunting ground. And now they knew he was here. "Check the east stairwell," a voice ordered, gruff and impatient. "If he's still inside, we box him in." Noah cursed under his breath. They were organized, efficient. Not the kind of scavengers who scared easily. A floor above, a distant groan echoed through the halls. A reminder that the undead still lurked in the darkness, drawn by sound, waiting for their chance. Noah had used them before to escape, but it was always a gamble. He peeked around the doorway. The hallway was clear, but for how long? He had 2 choices: make a run for the stairwell and risk getting shot, or head deeper into the building and hope there was another way out. Neither was good. The soft shuffle of boots on broken glass made his decision for him. Noah darted forward, his feet silent against the cracked tiles. The emergency exit sign flickered ahead, a pale green glow against the gloom. His hand brushed the door handle when a shadow moved in the stairwell. Too late. "Gotcha," a voice sneered. Noah reacted on instinct. He swung the crowbar in a sharp arc, catching the man's wrist. A grunt of pain, then a gunshot. The explosion of sound was deafening. For a second, everything stopped. Then, a new sound filled the air. Moans. Low and hungry, coming from below. Noah didn't hesitate. He slammed the door shut and sprinted back the way he came. Behind him, the stairwell erupted into chaos, men shouting, the pounding of feet, and the guttural snarls of the infected pouring up from the lower levels. A second shot rang out. A scream. Noah didn't look back. He weaved through the dark corridors, his pulse a frantic drumbeat. He needed an escape route, fast. He burst into a maintenance room, locking the door behind him. His hands shook as he checked his pistol. 3 bullets left. A voice crackled through the vents, desperate, angry. "He's still in the building. Find him before those things do." Noah exhaled slowly. Trapped between the living and the dead. His only way out was through. Noah pressed his ear to the metal door, listening. The screams from the stairwell had died down, replaced by the wet, sickening sounds of flesh being torn apart. The moans of the undead echoed through the building, growing in number. The gang wasn't his problem anymore. But the zombies were. He turned, scanning the maintenance room. 1 rusted air duct vent sat along the back wall. His best bet. Noah pried it open with the crowbar and slid inside, crawling forward as quietly as possible. The stale air in the duct was thick with dust, making every breath feel like he was inhaling ash. He inched forward, careful not to make a sound. The metal creaked under his weight, and for a second, he froze. A sound came from ahead. Not a zombie. Not one of the gang. A whisper. "You make too much noise," a voice murmured. Noah's fingers tightened around the crowbar. "Who's there?" he hissed. A few feet ahead, a vent cover shifted, and a face appeared in the dim light. A woman, her dark eyes sharp with calculation. She was in her mid-30s, wearing a torn hoodie and a makeshift harness of knives and ammo clips. "The name's Evelyn," she whispered. "And I just saved your ass." Noah narrowed his eyes. "How do you figure?" "I was tracking those bastards before you screwed up my plan," she muttered. "But you gave them a bigger problem." She jerked her chin toward the chaos below. "Now they're zombie chow." Noah wasn't sure if she was mocking him or thanking him. Either way, he wasn't in the mood. "There's no time for this," he said. "If the whole building gets swarmed, we're screwed." Evelyn nodded. There's a fire escape on the west side. I was planning on taking it once I got what I needed. Noah frowned. And what's that? She hesitated. A key. His gut told him she wasn't lying, but she wasn't telling him everything, either. You can have your key, he said. I just want out of here. Evelyn smirked. Then let's move. They crawled through the ducts in silence, stopping only when the moans grew too close. Below them, the high-rise was descending into chaos. The undead dragged fresh corpses across the floors, some of them turning almost immediately. When they reached the west side, Evelyn kicked out a loose vent cover, peering down. No good, she muttered. Too many. Noah followed her gaze. The hallway below was crawling with at least a dozen zombies, blocking the only path to the fire escape. We'll have to draw them away, he said. Evelyn turned to him, raising an eyebrow. And how do you plan to do that? Noah pulled out his pistol and checked the chamber. 3 bullets left. I'll think of something, he muttered. Evelyn let out a breath. Great. Their escape wasn't going to be easy. And Noah wasn't sure if his new ally would be a blessing or his biggest mistake yet. The fire escape was their only chance, but the hallway below was swarming with undead. With only 3 bullets left, Noah needed a distraction, but even a perfect plan could turn into a death trap in seconds. Evelyn wasn't just another survivor, she had a plan, a goal. But she wasn't sharing everything. As the undead moved in, Noah had to decide whether to trust her or use her as a way out. Because in a world like this, survival meant making impossible choices. Part 3, No Easy Way Out, 595 words. Noah stared at the writhing mass of undead below. Torn flesh, gnashing teeth, lifeless eyes. The hallway was a bottleneck, and they were on the wrong side of it. We're not getting through that without a distraction, Evelyn whispered. Noah glanced at her. Got any ideas? She pulled a small metal flask from her jacket and gave it a shake. The faint slosh of liquid inside made Noah frown. Alcohol, he guessed. Evelyn smirked. Molotov. Noah arched an eyebrow. And you just carry that around? She shrugged. I like options. Before he could question her further, she reached into her pocket and pulled out a lighter. This might not kill them, but it'll cause a scene, she said, flicking the flame to life. Noah hesitated. Fire was unpredictable, and if the whole building went up, they'd be no better off than the corpses below. But time wasn't on their side. Evelyn didn't wait for his approval. She popped the cap, stuffed in a rag, and lit it. With a quick flick of her wrist, she sent the flaming bottle crashing down the hallway. The glass shattered, and in an instant, flames burst to life, crawling across the floor and up the walls. The nearest zombies reacted immediately, groaning as the heat licked at their decayed flesh. Some stumbled toward the fire, drawn to the sudden light and movement. Others backed away, disoriented by the flickering glow. It wasn't perfect, but it was enough. This is our shot, Noah muttered. They moved fast, dropping from the vent opening onto the scorched floor below. The fire had forced a path open, and they ran, weaving between the distracted undead. Halfway to the fire escape, a bloodied hand lunged at Noah from the side. He barely had time to react before a rotting corpse grabbed at his jacket. Instinct took over. He swung his crowbar, caving in the walker's skull with a sickening crunch. The body crumpled, but the sound drew attention. The nearest zombies turned, their hollow eyes locking onto him. Move! Evelyn shouted. They sprinted the last few steps, reaching the fire escape door. Noah grabbed the handle and yanked. Locked. You've got to be kidding me, he growled. Evelyn cursed and pulled out a knife, jamming it into the lock. Cover me. Noah turned, raising his pistol. 3 bullets. 3 chances. The first shot dropped a walker with a clean headshot. The second took down another, but more were coming. Noah took aim for his final shot. Click. Empty. The dead closed in. Got it! Evelyn shouted, shoving the door open. They tumbled through just as the first zombie lunged. Noah slammed the door shut behind them, bracing his weight against it. "Help me," he barked. Evelyn grabbed a rusted pipe from the stairwell, jamming it between the door handles. The zombies pounded from the other side, but for now, the barrier held. Noah exhaled hard, hands on his knees. That was too close. Evelyn smirked. Welcome to the apocalypse. They weren't safe yet. The fire escape led down into an alley, another unknown. And Noah still didn't trust Evelyn. But for now, he was alive. And that was enough. Noah and Evelyn had escaped the high-rise, but they weren't safe yet. The alley was eerily silent, an unnatural stillness that set Noah on edge. They had to keep moving. But as they made their way through the ruins of the city, it became clear Evelyn had her own agenda. She wasn't just looking for supplies, she was after something specific. And when they stumbled across a fortified survivor outpost, Noah realized she had led him into a whole new kind of danger. Because in a world overrun by the dead, the living were still the biggest threat. Part 4, Trust is a Loaded Gun, 595 words. Noah's boots crunched against shattered glass as he followed Evelyn through the alley. The high-rise behind them burned, the fire casting flickering shadows against the crumbling buildings. They had escaped the undead, for now. But Noah wasn't convinced his new companion wasn't just as dangerous. "How far are we going?" he asked, gripping his crowbar a little tighter. Evelyn barely glanced back. "Until we find shelter." Noah didn't buy it. She had a destination in mind, he could see it in the way she moved, in the way her eyes flicked down side streets like she was looking for something specific. But he played along. For now. The city was a graveyard. Cars sat abandoned, rusting under the weight of time. Buildings loomed overhead, their windows shattered, their walls scarred by bullets and fire. The occasional distant moan drifted through the streets, but the undead weren't as thick here. That meant something. It meant people had been here recently. "Tell me the truth," Noah said. "Where are we going?" Evelyn slowed but didn't stop. "There's a place up ahead," she admitted. "A survivor outpost." Noah frowned. "And you think they'll help us?" Evelyn scoffed. "Help? No. But they have what I need." His grip on the crowbar tightened. "And what's that?" Evelyn hesitated. That was all the confirmation Noah needed, she wasn't telling him everything. But before he could press further, she stopped suddenly, raising a hand. Noah tensed. "What is it?" She pointed to the intersection ahead. "Look." Noah followed her gaze, and his stomach twisted. A barricade loomed in the distance, built from cars, barbed wire, and scavenged scrap metal. High above, watchtowers had been set up, figures moving inside them. A survivor outpost. But it wasn't abandoned. The people inside were armed. And they had already seen them. A spotlight snapped on, bathing the street in a harsh white glow. "Drop your weapons," a voice boomed. Noah cursed under his breath. His instincts screamed to run, but the red laser sights dancing over his chest told him that wasn't an option. Evelyn, however, didn't look surprised. She raised her hands. "It's me," she called. There was a long silence. Then, the gate creaked open. A tall man stepped out, his rifle slung across his chest. His face was lined with scars, his eyes sharp with suspicion. "Evelyn," he said slowly. "Didn't think we'd see you again." Noah's stomach twisted. "Again?" Evelyn exhaled. "I'm here for what you owe me, Mason." Mason smirked. "Oh, you think I owe you?" He turned his gaze to Noah. "And who's this?" Evelyn barely glanced at him. "Just someone who was useful." Noah's blood went cold. He had been played. Before he could react, Mason's men moved in, guns raised. Noah's instincts screamed at him to fight. But outnumbered and unarmed, he had only one option. Surrender. For now. Noah had been played, but he wasn't dead, yet. Mason and his people weren't just survivors, they were warlords, ruling with an iron grip. Evelyn had history with them, and whatever she was here for, it was dangerous enough that she had used Noah as a bargaining chip. Locked in a holding cell, Noah realized he had to escape before he became another casualty of this lawless world. But Evelyn wasn't as in control as she thought. When Mason revealed his own plans, it became clear, trust had no place here, and the only way out was through blood and fire. Part 5. A Debt Paid in Blood, 595 words. Noah sat on the cold concrete floor of the holding cell, hands bound behind his back. The room smelled of rust and damp, a reminder that this place had once been something else, maybe a police station, maybe a bunker. Now, it was a prison. Outside, muffled voices carried through the metal door. Mason's men laughed, talked in low murmurs about how long the new guy would last. Noah flexed his fingers against the rope, testing its give. Not much. Footsteps approached. Heavy boots against the ground. The door groaned open, and Mason stepped inside, arms crossed. Behind him, Evelyn lingered, her expression unreadable. Noah's jaw clenched. You sold me out. Evelyn didn't deny it. Mason chuckled. Don't take it personally, kid. Everyone's got a price. Noah glared at her. And what's yours? Evelyn exhaled. They have something I need. Mason smirked. And she thought bringing in a stray would buy her a favor. He crouched, his gaze turning sharp. Trouble is, I don't do favors. And I sure as hell don't take in outsiders. Noah's heart pounded. He had walked into a death trap, and there was only one way out. Mason stood, turning to one of his guards. Take him outside. The guard grabbed Noah's arm, dragging him to his feet. Noah's mind raced. If they took him outside, it wasn't to let him go. Evelyn stepped forward. Mason. Mason shot her a look. You got what you came for. Stay out of this. For a split second, Noah saw something flicker across Evelyn's face. Regret? But it didn't matter. She had made her choice. They led Noah through a dimly lit corridor and out into a walled courtyard. A pit had been dug into the ground, deep enough that the dozen or so walkers trapped inside couldn't climb out. The guard holding him shoved him forward. Hope you can fight. Noah's blood ran cold. Mason stood at the edge of the pit, arms crossed. You want to prove you belong? Earn it. The guards untied his hands, then tossed a knife at his feet. The meaning was clear. Survive the pit, or die in it. Noah swallowed hard. The zombies groaned below, their decayed fingers clawing at the air, their jaws snapping in mindless hunger. He could refuse, but that meant a bullet to the head. Or he could fight. Noah picked up the knife. Mason grinned. Good choice. The guards shoved him in. Noah hit the ground hard, rolling to the side just as a walker lunged. He slashed out with the knife, slicing through rotting flesh. The pit erupted into chaos. A walker grabbed his leg, he drove the blade into its skull. Another came from behind, he spun, using the body as a shield. The knife wasn't enough. He needed something more. Then, gunfire. One by one, the walkers dropped. Noah turned. Evelyn stood at the edge of the pit, smoking pistol in hand. Mason's men were dead. She tossed a rope down. Time to go. Noah hesitated. He should have let her rot. But trust was a luxury neither of them had. He grabbed the rope. Noah had every reason to leave Evelyn behind. She had betrayed him, used him, nearly gotten him killed. But in this world, trust was a fleeting thing, and survival meant making impossible choices. With Mason's men dead and the survivor outpost in chaos, they had only minutes to escape. But Mason wasn't done yet. As the fortress burned, Noah and Evelyn faced one final battle, against the warlord, against the dead, and against the price of their own survival. Because in the apocalypse, the only way out was through blood and fire. Part 6, The Only Way Out, 595 words. Noah climbed the rope, muscles burning with exhaustion. The moment his feet hit solid ground, he turned to Evelyn, heart pounding. "What the hell are you playing at?" he snapped. Evelyn didn't flinch. "I had to get inside." Noah's grip on the knife tightened. "So you sold me out?" "I got you out, didn't I?" she shot back. "Now move." Gunfire rang out in the distance. Mason's remaining men were scrambling, trying to regroup. Sirens blared from the fortress walls. Someone had triggered an alarm. They had minutes. Maybe less. Evelyn grabbed a rifle from a fallen guard and tossed Noah a handgun. "We have to get to the north gate." Noah didn't argue. He had no love for her, but staying here meant death. They sprinted through the compound, weaving between crates and abandoned vehicles. The fortress was in chaos. Some of Mason's men were fighting off the undead that had breached the walls, others were hunting for them. A bullet whizzed past Noah's ear. He ducked behind a rusted car, firing back. One of Mason's guards dropped, but more were coming. "Go!" Evelyn shouted. Noah ran, dodging past a pile of burning debris. The north gate loomed ahead, half open, freedom within reach. Then Mason stepped into their path. His rifle was gone. Instead, he held a machete, its edge gleaming in the firelight. His scarred face twisted in rage. "You think you can just walk away?" Mason growled. Noah raised his gun, finger on the trigger. Click. Empty. Mason grinned. "Bad luck." He lunged. Noah barely dodged the first swing, the blade slicing through the air where his head had been. He countered with a punch to Mason's ribs, but the warlord barely flinched. Evelyn fired. Mason twisted at the last second. The bullet grazed his shoulder, but he didn't slow. He kicked Noah back, sending him sprawling. Noah hit the ground hard, dazed. Mason raised the machete. A shot rang out. Mason froze. A small hole bloomed in the center of his forehead. He staggered, eyes wide, then crumpled. Noah looked up. Evelyn stood over him, smoking pistol in hand. She exhaled. "I told you. Time to go." Noah swallowed hard, then grabbed Mason's machete and ran. Together, they sprinted through the open gate, disappearing into the ruins beyond. The fortress burned behind them. They didn't look back. For now, they were alive. For now, that was enough. The end.